Well, we all know the big meme of GameStop ripping off customers, right? Oh, I bet you take that to GameStop, you get like $2 for it. That might even be overshooting there with the value you get back. But what if someone went to a store that was closing down and they figured out a way to actually get over on GameStop? Because that appears to be what has happened. Now, if you remember before, we talked a bit about how GameStop was downsizing some of their stores. They were closing some down. They were basically going to look around and say, which stores are literally within walking distance of each other? Let's go ahead and make it so that there's just one store there rather than like three, which to all of us makes sense, but you got to remember GameStop has gone through and we'll say acquired several different brands, EB Games, FuncoLand are just a few that come to mind, and they had locations that were just basically converted into GameStops, or not even with the signage being changed, still says EB Games, but it's really just GameStop, right? Well, now they are downsizing, like we said. We talked about how some places are just pretty much marking down stuff like 70% off in some instances. A lot of stuff was marked down by half, and a lot of that has to do with we don't want to ship this stuff because the transit would cost quite a bit. So paying UPS to take all this stuff, I mean, think about shipping an entire store. That would cost a lot of money, whereas they must have done the math and said, hey, let's take some of the really big stuff like the systems, mark them down, and that'll be a lot easier. Maybe they can ship some of the games and that isn't as bad. I just remember when I was at GameStop working, we would get so many boxes through UPS, whether it was boxes from other stores as they reorganized, and they would send basically games our way that we didn't have a lot of stock of. And if we had too much of one game, we would put them in boxes and ship them away. I think they were like called RSBs or something. It was really annoying and frustrating to have to do because it would take forever. And of course we would have one of those to do almost every other day. But let's take a look at what happened here. As you can see, this is on Reddit, and they took the picture down. And I think the reason they took the picture itself down is because there was an employee in it. And I have to imagine this will get you into some trouble if you're an employee that keeps taking systems that seem to be unopened with GameStop stickers on them. But anyway, it says 2 GameStops in town. One of the 2 is closing, and Xbox One X is marked at $199. Bought one, took it to trade at the GameStop a few blocks away. They gave me $275. Went back, bought 2 more using the store credit, then 3 more. Ended up buying all 9 in stock and got a $796 gift card and kept one. Yeah, that's one way to take advantage of GameStop's trade-in credit that benefits you. Most of the time we trade stuff in and we get quite a bit less than what the thing is worth. In this instance, they seem to have only had to pay in $200 to get back $796 in store credit, and then even getting an Xbox One X on top of that. That's pretty good. Not good for the people who maybe wanted to go in and get an Xbox One X marked at $199, whereas someone actually bought all of them and then transferred them to a GameStop for GameStop. And looking at this, GameStop's just going to take those systems in and then put them out on the shelf for full price, unless there's some kind of some promotion or something going on. So I do kind of look at this and say, well, GameStop probably didn't lose a ton of money. They may have actually broken even on this. But at the same time, the people who may have been behind that person in line as they racked up all these Xbox One X's at $200 a piece probably missed out. Also, on top of that, I remember when I was at GameStop, there were times where if you did some weird stuff like this, you would kind of be put on like a no trade list. It was something that was kept kind of, from what I remember, kind of under the counter at the time, and then eventually they made it to where it would be a little strange based on some of the trade-ins. And I do remember sometimes people would come in and they would say, I have this brand new game, I want to trade it in. We would make them open it before they trade it in, like they have to go away and then they could bring it back later or something. But it was definitely an issue if they came in with a sealed games or multiple copies of the same game sealed. A lot of times we would just turn those away because yeah, it looks like theft, right? Like somebody just stole a bunch of games and they're bringing them in, which is why I looked at this and I said, that seems strange that the employee would just take those in. Although I have a feeling they got to a point where they realized what was happening, because if you're only a few blocks away from each other, both stores, and you're looking at this, you have to figure that they're just going back and forth between the GameStops, and maybe they said, well, what am I going to do? This is from the store down the road. It's not stolen. I have called them now at this point because this person keeps coming back. I'll just take them in, and they helped us out by transferring these back and forth for us. We didn't have to ship them. Still, though, it is a little funny that somebody figured out a way to get over on GameStop, getting $800 in-store credit and an Xbox One X for what was effectively $200 being put out. And I've seen this happen other ways, whether it's like a deal, like a buy two, get the third free, and then the person figures out that they can then trade the third game back in and get more money off. But this was like to like the next level. And it was interesting that they figured that out on the fly and they were able to get to this point, but most likely they are now on a no trade list, I assume. Also, real quick, do you remember how we talked about GameStop and their new ideas for different stores? Remember they were doing the big revamp, the big GameStop 2.0 thing where they were going to try to make it more of a, I guess like a community type thing where people can come in and play games, and they were showing it off, but no one was really in there, and we weren't 100% sure on how it was going to work out. Well, GameStop posted, or at least retweeted, I guess, what seems to be a series of images from a birthday party being held at one of those GameStops, and you know what? It does look fun, I will say that, but I will also comment on it from the business side a bit here. So let's take a look at some of these images that Miguel Lozada posted up. You can see them here, and it does look kind of neat. I mean, look at how many stations they have set up here. You see some of the kids at the bottom kind of playing on the different TVs, appear to be playing. I think that's Fortnite, go figure, but you can see just how many TVs they have set up here. I mean, it's quite a few. There's at least 24 different stations set up, and you can see all the different systems in the back there behind those glass panels. That is quite a bit of stuff going on there, and I do wonder how well that actually works out for them in terms of revenue, because you can see there's a lot of space where they're not putting games on the wall. But if we kind of start to go through here, you can see they have their little table set up with the birthday party, the hard floor, laminate floor, I guess. Makes sense. You can see the soda sitting up there. If that's spilled on carpet, yeah, that would not be fun to pick up. But they do have some games there on the wall. Much smaller section for games on the wall, instead being changed out for, well, a TV with a couch there. And then we saw that massive set of different stations kind of put out there for people to play on. I've seen this before in stores. I've been a part of stores that tried to do this, and it didn't always work out, mostly because those TVs weren't taken advantage of enough to where it made sense in terms of money, because you would rent out a TV for X amount of dollars, and instead of having games or merchandise out, you might have a TV that's not even being used, or a station that's not being used. And while it's cool to see this, especially from like our perspective as customers, they're hanging out, they're playing games. That's really neat. I do wonder, and I think this is something that should be brought up, how much money would this actually generate GameStop, and is this something that would really be able to save them? I mean, if you look here, you can see just how many TVs are just not being used. Now, I think there's a chance that maybe the store this could have been before like their normal business hours or after or something. I mean, it looked like it was, I guess, daylight outside. And they could have done it something like that, or maybe it'd be strange to have a birthday party going on during store hours in the same kind of area, because you can see just how many monitors and stuff aren't being used rather than having games out there. But I mean, it's a neat idea. I don't know if it's something that will make GameStop more profitable, because it looks like there's quite a bit of money that goes into the setup here, and then your electric and everything. There's a lot of costs that's being shown here. I think they would have to kind of fill this up similar to what an internet cafe would try to do, which is where they just try to have a lot of people in there all at once. And then I also wonder how that would work out for the employee that might be trying to sell games while also keep an eye on what could end up being over 20 people playing games. So we'll see what GameStop does here. I would like to see one of these pop up or be revamped near me so I can go check it out and see how it all functions, in practice. But until then, all we can do is see these pictures pop up on GameStop's Twitter account as they show at least it in its best light. Anyway, that's going to do it here, guys. Let me know what you think about GameStop and their apparently their revamp with birthday parties, or when they got ripped off by a person who figured out that they could just go back and forth between two different GameStops, one that's being closed down with Xbox One X's that were slashed in price, trade them in, and go back and forth there. Let me know if you've seen that ever happen before outside of this. Thanks, guys, for watching. Make sure you like the video on the way out if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.